My father looked me in the eye and said I was never really his. Then he left our house to a woman I'd never met. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just kept the key he pressed into my hand 3 days before he died. Everyone said I'd lost everything: the house, the name, the man I called Dad. They were wrong about one thing. I clerk at the county courthouse. I've stamped 11,000 documents, and the will that erased me had a date on it that could not exist. Nobody noticed but me, not the lawyer, not the stranger smiling in my mother's kitchen. Her name in that will, I'd seen it once before, in a file that was sealed. Stay with me, because a single stamp on a single closed day unraveled everything they built. By the end, you'll see how quietly the truth can take a house back. Welcome to Betrayal Diaries, where quiet people finally tell the truth, and justice speaks softly but never misses. If stories of betrayal, family secrets, and earned justice move you, you're in the right place. Now, let me take you back to where this one began. Her name was Vivian. I had never seen her before the will was read, but she walked into my father's kitchen like she'd paid for the floor. My name is Nora. I'm 34. I clerk at the county courthouse records division. I spend my days making sure dates and stamps line up. Precision is the only thing I've ever been good at. I turn the ring on my finger. My father gave it to me when I turned 16. I turn it when the world tilts, and I can't say so out loud. The lawyer, Mr. Prescott, read the will in a small, warm office. He had a soft voice and careful hands. The primary residence, he said, passes to Vivian Cole. I waited for my name. It came once near the end. $1. That was all my father left me. $1, and a sentence I still hear at night. 3 days before he died, he'd held my hand in the hospital. His grip was weak, but certain. He pressed something cold into my palm. An old brass key, worn smooth at the edges. You'll know when it's time, he whispered. I asked him what it opened. He only smiled. I didn't understand. I still don't. But the last full thing my father said to me was not gentle. He looked at me, eyes clear for one terrible moment. You were never really mine, Nora. Then he closed his eyes. I thought it was the medication. I told myself that for weeks. My brother, Adam, sat beside me at the reading. When Vivian's name was spoken, he didn't look surprised. He looked relieved. Maybe it's for the best, he murmured. You always overthink things. That was the first crack. I just didn't know it yet. Vivian found me in the hallway afterward. She smelled of perfume and cold air. I know this is hard, she said sweetly. Your father wanted peace. Please don't make this ugly. Her smile never reached her eyes. I said nothing. I turned the ring. That night, I set the brass key on my counter. I never understood why he gave it to me. It didn't fit our front door. It didn't fit anything I owned. I almost dropped it in a drawer and forgot it. Something stopped me. I still can't explain what. Here is the thing about my job. I've stamped 11,000 documents. Filing dates become a language you read in your sleep. And when Mr. Prescott handed me a courtesy copy of the will, my eyes did what they always do. They went straight to the notarized date at the bottom. March 2nd, a Sunday. The courthouse is closed on Sundays. Notaries in our county file through the county seal. That stamp could not have been applied on a Sunday. It was impossible. My father's will had been notarized on a day the office did not exist. I sat very still. I turned the ring 3 times. I told myself I was tired, that grief plays tricks, that I was seeing ghosts in ink. But I have never once been wrong about a date. And there was something else. Vivian Cole. I had seen that name before, long ago, in a file marked sealed. I couldn't remember why, but my hands remembered the weight of that folder. I went to the courthouse before dawn the next morning. The fluorescent lights hummed above me, the only sound in the empty office. I typed her name into the county index and started reading. 34 years. That's how far back her name went in our records. The sealed file wasn't sealed to me. Records clerks see what others don't. It was a paternity case, filed 34 years ago, the year I was born, withdrawn before it ever reached a judge. My hands went still on the keyboard. The child named in that petition was me. I read it 4 times before the words held their shape. Vivian had filed a claim, then pulled it back. My father had paid something to make it quiet. I didn't understand all of it yet, but I understood this. Vivian was not a stranger. She had been circling my family my whole life. That afternoon, I requested the original will from probate intake. Not the copy, the filed original. I laid it flat and looked at the notary block again. March 2nd, the county seal pressed clean and dark. But this time I saw the second thing. The notary commission number stamped beneath it. I cross-checked it against our commission registry, the one only records staff can open. My throat tightened. The commission had expired 11 months before that date. A notary whose license was dead had stamped my father's will. On a day, the office was closed. 2 impossibilities stacked in a single block of ink. I called our county's compliance officer to be certain. I only asked her to confirm the expiry. That commission lapsed last spring, she said. Anything stamped after that is void. I thanked her. I did not tell her what I was holding. Deduction was mine. Confirmation was all I needed. Ruth stopped by my desk as I worked. She'd run the records counter for 30 years. You concentrate just like your father did, she said gently. I looked up. He came here. She nodded. Once. Asked me how to seal a file, so no one could ever open it again. She smiled and moved on. It landed in me like a stone. My father had known these halls too. I set the brass key on the desk beside the will. I don't know why. It felt like it belonged there now. Adam called that night. His voice was too smooth. Vivian says you've been asking questions at work. He said, don't embarrass the family. Dad made his choice. I asked how Vivian knew what I did at work. The line went quiet. Just let it go, he said softly. Then he hung up. He told her. My own brother was reporting me. I turned the ring until my finger ached. You were never really mine. I had heard cruelty. Now I heard a confession. He hadn't been rejecting me. He'd been handing me a secret. He was too weak to explain. The next morning Vivian came to the courthouse, sweet as ever, a coffee in each hand. Let's not be enemies, she said. Her eyes moved to my desk, to the papers, to the key, just for a second. Your father was sentimental at the end, she said lightly. Gave you some old trinket? He always kept useless things. Her knuckles were white around the cups. She knew about the key. And if she knew, the key wasn't a keepsake. It was evidence. That night, I checked the withdrawn petition one last time. It hadn't been signed by my father at all. It had been signed in Vivian's own hand, under a name that was never hers. The key opened a safe deposit box at a bank 2 towns over. My father's name was on the lease. Mine was the only other name he'd added. I found it because the key had a number etched so faintly I'd missed it for weeks. A clerk learns to trust small numbers. I turned my ring, drove out on my lunch hour, and signed the card with hands that would not stay still. Inside was a plain folder, my real birth certificate, the paternity results my father had paid to bury, and a letter, in his handwriting, dated the week before he died. He wrote that Vivian had found him again after 30 years, that she'd threatened to tell the world I wasn't legally his unless he signed the house to her, that he'd refused, then grown too sick to fight. If you're reading this, he wrote, then I couldn't stop them. But you can. You always could. You just had to be told it was time. He hadn't disowned me. He'd been protecting me the only way a dying man could, by hiding the truth where only I would look. Probate court met on a Thursday. The same small courtroom I'd filed papers in 100 times. Vivian wore gray, and looked serene. Prescott sat beside her. Adam sat behind them, not with me. When the judge asked if anyone contested the will, I stood. I did not raise my voice. I have never once raised my voice. I laid the documents on the table one at a time. The original will, the registry showing an expired notary, the county calendar marking March 2nd, a closed Sunday, the petition signed in a false hand, my father's letter, last, a chair scraped somewhere behind me, then nothing. This will was notarized on a day the office was closed, I said, by a notary whose license had already expired. Neither is possible. Both are on record. I slid the calendar forward, and the woman who inherited everything once filed a document under a name that was never hers. Prescott's face drained. Vivian stood. "This is grief," she said. "She's confused." Her own father told her she was never his. I turned my ring one last time. Then I set it on the table beside the papers. "You're right that he said it," I answered. But it wasn't a rejection. It was a clue. He wasn't telling me I wasn't his daughter. He was telling me you were still lying. I looked at her steadily. It wasn't a stranger's inheritance. It was a forgery, 30 years in the making. The room went silent. Vivian's serene face finally cracked. The settlement came quickly once the fraud was documented. The house returned to the estate, and to me. Vivian faced a forgery charge and a civil claim. She settled rather than let a jury read the file. Prescott surrendered his license before the bar could take it, and Adam, his name surfaced in Vivian's bank records. She'd paid him to keep me distracted. He had to return every dollar in the settlement, and the relatives who once called him the reliable one stopped taking his calls. He wrote me a long apology. I haven't answered it. Some doors take longer to open than others. I stood on the porch of my father's house that evening. The lock was mine again. I breathed out, and the cold spring air was the first full breath I'd taken in weeks. I keep the old brass key on a chain now, not because I need it, because it reminds me that patience is not surrender. I turned half the house into a quiet office. People who've been erased from their own records come there to learn how to read the paper trail that stole from them. I never charge them. I just show them where the dates don't line up. I spent my whole life staying quiet, stamping other people's truths into permanence. And I learned that silence is not weakness. It's a record waiting for its moment. If you've been carrying something heavy, and quietly put it down the right way, not with noise, with truth. If this story moved you, tell me in the comments. Would you have stood up in that courtroom or walked away? If you believe quiet people deserve justice too, give this video a like and share it with someone who needs it tonight. Subscribe to Betrayal Diaries for a new story of betrayal and quiet justice every day. And tap the screen now to watch another one right here. I'll see you in the next story.